right, Connor. So I don't see your slides yet.
Sorry about that.
Oh, that's okay.
Give me one moment.
Okay.
And I will be able to share my screen.
So I don't see Connor. I think Connor might be having a connectivity issue. Okay, Connor's back.
Okay, terribly sorry about that. I had some technical difficulties on my end.
It's okay. Don't worry about it.
Okay, so let me go ahead and share now.
Perfect.
So
there you go.
I put together a little presentation on my work over the past, I don't know, 11 years or so, 11, 12 years. And thank you guys all for being here. It really means a lot. I've never really done a talk like this, so you'll have to forgive me if I'm pretty green and fresh. So I wanted to start by really showing a lot of progression from how I got started with art and how I got to where I am right now. So a huge influence on me was my elementary school art teacher, who basically gave me the permission and the acceptance to make art personally. So a couple of these first images are, especially the ink drawings, are a direct result of her really giving me a nudge and helping me to, learn to express myself. A big event happened towards the end of my time in elementary school when she really helped push me. There was an artist doing a live talk and giving a little presentation of their ink drawings to the whole school. She kind of came up to me. She's like, "Hey, Connor, do you want to go up there?" And I'm like 10 years old. I'm totally nervous. I'm the shyest little kid. And I'm like, okay, I'll go up. So I think I actually did this one on the left up on stage. And it was a terrifying experience. Some of these other ones came a little bit afterwards. So this one on the right, I did a little later. I was kind of just like a middle school boy. So all the art I wanted to do was more just to gross out everyone and make outrageous faces. So I just doodle on everything I could. Some of my favorite drawings from around this period I did with ballpoint pen and highlighter, just because it's what we had around the house. And I still think they're great materials to work with. Ballpoint pen is such a fun, accessible thing, and I'm so glad that it's so common just to try out. So a lot of these early ones are just with things that were lying around, and that made a huge difference. So we're getting a little further in, still making kind of uh, gross art just to freak people out. I don't know. But something big kind of happened in middle school for me as an artist. I had another art teacher in middle school who had a figure drawing club after school from like 3 to 5 in the afternoon. And I was 14, but they had nude models. So I was just like, hi, could I come and draw? I just really love to draw, and it seems great. And he's like, Connor, I don't normally allow kids younger than 16 to come and do this, but yeah, come on, it's fun. So a lot of these early figure drawings were all from that kind of period of just hanging out after school. It was so much fun. This guy, Vern, that was the teacher's name. He is a real strange guy, but he kind of just let us do whatever we wanted, and it was really helpful. It really taught me one thing that I think is really important about art, which is kind of a deadline. Because with figure drawing, you only have like a few minutes and then it's done. So then I kind of started painting in the end of middle school and high school. And this is one of the first few paintings I did. It was just for the same teacher who hosted the after school drawing. He wanted everyone to do like a self-portrait. So this one I did, and I wasn't too happy with it, but the school put it in their little newsletter. And one of the side effects of that was I got contacted by an alumni who wanted me to go over to her house and show her my artwork. So I went over. She was, I think, about 80 plus at the time, and her sons had gone to my high school. And she was like, Connor, this painting really speaks to me. I'm like, you want to buy this painting of me like looking as doofy as I possibly could make it? And she was thrilled. She was a huge supporter of me for a long time. And one of the first people that really pushed me to think about art, not just as a pastime, but as like a potential career. Because while I don't think I'd ever been paid before to make art, and that's something that's really serious, especially as a kid. It's like, oh my God, $200. What am I going to do with all this money? So for a while after that, I pretty much just focused on figure drawing, and more of the doodly type work was kept in my sketchbook instead of being like fully resolved paintings. So a lot of this stuff, I would still go to after school drawing. But as soon as I got my driver's license, I basically convinced my parents, like, hey, can I go like 2 hours out of town? Because I hear there's like some little figure drawing club and I really want to go. And they're like, sure, fine, get out of the house. So I did that pretty much every weekend for the last 2 years of high school. And it was amazing. Like those were some of the most fun times I ever had. Just driving for hours in Los Angeles, drawing with a whole bunch of 40-plus-year-old strangers. Sounds a bit weird, but they were just really great guys, and they were really supportive of young artists. So I'm really thankful that there's such a great community of artists around Los Angeles and in Providence. So this is kind of towards the end of high school. I joined this one little club out in San Gabriel, and there was this great guy, Garrett, who was an ex art center alumni. And he held these really long figure drawing sessions. I think they were like 4 hours. I was like, oh, this is great. So I just did that. Here are some more. I'm getting a little older, maybe I'm 16, 17. And here's another kind of important piece in terms of this, like this professional arc. We were supposed to do like a pastiche painting or like a painting of an old master's work for a high school art class. I'm like, oh, you know, this is Velázquez's Las Meninas, which is an amazing piece. I hope I get a chance to see it in person at some point. But I did this for my junior year of high school. And at the end of the year, my teacher kind of pulled me aside and he's like, hey, Connor, I really like this piece. I'm like, oh, okay. He's like, Connor, I know how hard you worked on this too. So how about we say I give you $1,000 for it? I'm like, what? $1,000? That was like the most money I could even conceive of at the time. And my teacher is offering to give it to me. I'm like, yeah, totally. That would be awesome. So I thankfully gave him the piece, and he's been another great supporter. And I think that was the real moment where I'm like, okay, I want to go to college for this. I want to study this, because if I can earn $1,000 on a painting, I think I could do okay. So I kept chugging on the figure drawing. I really loved it, and I still do. There's just less of an opportunity to do it, especially in this current climate. So here's kind of the end of high school. I had done one thing I really just loved was stretching strange fabric on canvas. So that was another one. The school I went to also buys artwork from their students. So when it came to the end of the year, when they're giving out like all these little prizes, mine was the purchase prize. I'm like, oh, I really don't want to sell this piece because I really liked it. But I figured it was like the right thing to do to sell it. So I sold it for 200, and this is after I'd earned $1,000 for the same size paintings. I'm like, should have given me more. But I was so happy to give it to the school. It was just like it was a really big honor, and it kept me motivated because RISD is probably the hardest, especially freshman year. Freshman year was the hardest transition, because freshman year they grind you down. Like it is so hard for the first year. These are a couple of paintings I made in my free time the first year. This is the first like oil painting I had done on the right, or one of the first. And I just wanted to include it just because I think it was also one of the first landscapes I had done, because I had pretty much only done figure drawing up until college. So now this is getting into RISD, and one thing that became really clear was I needed to make real finished work. I couldn't just like rely on drawing. I really felt like I wanted to do something a little more significant, like in terms of personal meaning and in terms of finish, and something that would hang on a wall. So these were the first two pieces that I really completed that I liked. And the one on the left is the one I entered into that show 2 years ago. And I'm really thankful that everyone liked it. It was a very different piece for me to do, and I guess it came out okay. So it was a huge, it really meant a lot that it did so well. And the one on the right was one, actually, let me grab it. I have it right over here. I did 2 versions of this piece. And one I did during the school year and one I did afterwards. And I think you'll be able to tell which one is which. So this is the first one. And this one I did right after the year ended. So I had been so bogged down freshman year that I really couldn't focus on my personal work the way I wanted to. But it literally, as soon as I finished the year, this was the first painting I did, and because I was done with classes, it just came right out. So I'm graduating in a couple weeks, so you can tell that I'm just raring to go. Here are some more from that same period. This one on the left was kind of breaking through what I had wanted to express with this left piece. And it also currently ties into a lot of the work I'm doing right now. It's about memory and photography and personal family history. And those are like the core themes that I rely on right now for my work. And this drawing on the right was a little drawing I did of my dad. I don't know what happened. Some art company sent me an email and said, "Hey, we want to film a video of you doing a drawing." So I went in and did, and I'm like, "Hey, can I bring my dad? I just want to draw my dad." So I brought him in and just drew him while he, I don't know, like futzed on his iPad for an hour. So that was fun. And here are some other pieces from that period that were kind of inflection points. This one on the left was the first like dry point print. So I had become really interested in printmaking about 2 years ago. And this was so much fun to do. And I just loved it. So I brought a lot of that mentality from some of my previous work into this one. And it follows through to where I am right now. So here are a couple more studies just from that same period. I've never really lost that love of figure drawing, but I can't justify the time as much as I used to be able to in high school, where I didn't have, concerns for all kinds of adult things. So I really love figure drawing still. I just wish I had more and more time. These are from just a few weeks ago, and they're all kind of ink drawings. And while it might be hard to tell a big difference from a lot of the earlier drawings, the biggest difference is time. These ones were done in like 5 minutes, whereas some of the other ones were done in hours, which is a really significant, it's really significant to me because, it goes to show, I guess, all those years weren't a waste. So here are some other ones. This model here, Ken, is a fantastic guy, and it was really funny. I invited him to the opening, and to that day, I had pretty much only seen him nude. So to see him show up to the opening wearing a suit and tie was surprising, to say the least. But just the sweetest guy. I love him. He's a friend of mine. We did little figure drawing sessions up in my like attic apartment, where my friends would come over, and we wouldn't strip all the way, but we'd get a quarter of the way there. So he's a great guy, great model. Just some flowers. More, I was, for a long period of time, I was really interested in in just kind of technical growth. But once I kind of got to this point, I realized it wasn't for me anymore. Just pursuing technique was kind of empty, and it left very little in the work itself. So that was a huge changing point about halfway through my time at RISD. And yeah, that kind of brings me to the work over the past year and a half. A lot of it is a little more contemplative. It's definitely not like my middle school work where I was just trying to make silly faces and what have you. These two I did at the very start of quarantine, and they really informed a lot of the work I did for the current show. Yeah, they were big, challenging paintings that I spent like weeks on each one. And there was a lot to learn in each one. So I'm really glad I was able to do these ones. Yeah, this is more printmaking on the right, which became a really big kind of pillar for me. For the longest time in quarantine, basically the only class I had in person was this etching class. And that was the highlight of my day, or of my week, every time I went, because, you know, I got to work with the presses and the inks and see people in person, and it was huge. It kind of kept me going. This piece on the right was also done in the last few months, and it's one of my favorite pieces, along with a lot of the work in the show. But it was a big breakthrough for me, because up until that point, I basically spent weeks like churning on every single piece, but this one just was much easier to do for some reason. And I haven't been able to replicate it since, so I'll catch that magic. But it is really hard to nail down. Yeah, continuing along, these are more works in the show. Yeah, a lot of the painting work is about family. It's about heritage and separation in a lot of them. Kind of the idea of blood family versus found family are themes that I definitely resonate with and want to express. Here are some more recent pieces, and that kind of brings me towards the end. This is one of the most challenging pieces I've ever done. It's very big, it's very dense, and it's been like wrestling with a piece of art every day I look at it. So it's not there, but it will be. And yeah, I wanna, if anyone has questions or things they want to ask, please write them down, or I'm sure Michael has a good form to put them in.
Mhm. Yeah, so if everybody wants to put their questions in the chat, I can read them for you. So we have a question already. So Anne asked the hardest question of all: who are some of your favorite artists, Connor? Who are some people that inspire you right now?
Yeah, I think for the longest time, let me think. That is a bit of a hard question, but I can look around my room. So a few that I can say are hugely influential are like Da Vinci, for sure. I love all of his drawings. They're really amazing. If there was a period I'm gonna scroll really quickly, where I just kind of wanted to make really Da Vinci-like silver point drawings, but these are of course like with mechanical pencil.
Mhm.
In my current kind of painting work, I really love David Park. Yeah, he's a great kind of figurative abstractionist. Egon Schiele, I love him. There are more artists. I think I could name a quality about just about any artist that I really love. So it is a really wide question. If you have anyone you want to talk about, please let me know. Yeah.
That's neat to learn about some of them anyway. Sandra was curious about what school in LA did you attend that was so supportive of you?
Yeah, there was so the high school that I went to that was incredibly supportive was Crossroads, the performing arts and science school, but they had, I know at least when I was there, they had a really great arts program, but it was receiving less and less funding every year. So I might have caught the tail end of it.
Yeah. One of my questions for you is, uh, like in this painting, for instance, you have this beautiful rose that shows up, and you showed a couple examples of some of your floral pieces that you were working on. What is that? What's the experience of drawing floral things versus working on a figure? Can you talk about that sort of technically, or what appeals to you about floral themes?
Hmm. Um, yeah, that is a good question. So I think if we're to go back, um, this is 3.5 years ago or so. I think this is like the first painting I did with that kind of idea in mind. So the idea of the flower has kind of changed meaning over the years. Initially in this work, um, for the most part, anything that's not a figure in my work is symbolic. Um, and in this case, it was kind of an act of omitting someone from the image. And as time went on, um, it, it it changed meaning a lot. So this one was done very soon after just something horrible happened. And the only thing I could do for a few weeks afterwards was go to this little sunflower patch in Providence and paint there every morning. So it really changed dramatically. After that happened, I just, it's been a little more somber in terms of meaning. And yeah, yeah. So it's a multifaceted symbol, I guess, depending on when I'm using it.
Yeah, yeah. Ann Carty asked, she said, so you were or you're about to be a graduated illustration major. Do you see yourself working in the illustration field, or would you prefer to focus just on fine art painting?
Yeah, I think this is such, I think this question has been uh, asked to me in one form or another ever since I started at RISD, and I don't think I've ever had a great answer. I think when I started RISD, my hero, James Jean, at the time, what's a hero at the time, was an illustrator. And I was like, yes, I want to do this. He's amazing. I love him. So I want to be an illustrator. But it became quickly apparent that the illustration field does not pay a kind of affordable lifestyle. The rates these days are really cutthroat, and they give very little time. So I typically am a slower artist, so I don't think I could I don't think I could do that kind of work. And if I had more time for illustration, I think it would be great, but it's just not the work I'm interested in doing right now. So I think painting is definitely the direction I'm going right now.
That's great. Margot asked, if money was not an issue, meaning that you didn't have to make any money, what direction would you like to go in your art career?
Okay. Yeah, now that is like the flip side of the other question. I think if money were no object, I would I'd have a lot of time to devote to, well, I guess it's another complicated answer. Like I might have said earlier, I think figure drawing and landscape drawing is really fun, but oftentimes it's not as rewarding in the final product. I guess I just wish I had a little more time for that kind of work along with painting. So I think if money were no object, I'd just continue to experiment a lot more than I'm currently able, because uh, in my experience with the professional side of art, people kind of expect consistency from you, and that leaves very little time for experimentation. So I would probably devote more time to experimentation if I didn't have the need to earn money.
A question from Eleanor is, are your paintings mixed media? Can you talk about like your layering process and some of that?
Yeah, absolutely. So um, mixed media, I guess they're mixed media. If mixed media means not just using straight paint, I use a lot of like texture mediums. Earlier on, I used a lot of fabric in my work, less so recently. Um, but for the most part, recently they've been very just paint on the surface. As for like the layering process, um, I guess that's kind of mixed media. All paintings virtually start with a drawing on the canvas, and then I kind of build it up from that point. So I'll start with a drawing, and then I'll create kind of washes with acrylic, like a watercolor, and then kind of build in the heavy body paint, as it were, on top of that. So that's my answer. I don't think recently they've been mixed media, but in the past, yes.
Um, Greg put some nice things in the chat, so you can see those. Some very nice things. And then Margot had a question, which is, from concept to finished work, what degree of change happens in your painting process?
Um, that's another really good question. So I will have to say it varies. So in a piece, like this orange piece on the right, it is pretty much, it came into my mind like fully formed, and I basically just translated it onto the canvas. Whereas a lot of these prints, this piece, a good number of my works, especially this piece, Jesus Christ, change a lot once the idea is put down on the canvas. There's a lot of revision. There's a lot of reality that has to get into the work that kind of clutters this concept that I might have at the very beginning. So it's not a straight line in most cases, unfortunately.
Lori had a question, which was, can you talk about your print Descent? What does it mean to you?
Yeah, I'll go to that image. Um, it's a toughie. It's a tough subject, I suppose. But the simple answer is kind of taking a degree of responsibility for, you know, okay. How should I phrase this? I guess I didn't realize how fragile, you know, people and life was and how delicate it is. It's still hard to believe just how delicate everything can be. So this piece is kind of dealing with taking more responsibility for family and I guess the notion of like a family tree as well is a big theme running through a lot of my recent work, especially since I've come to Providence. So yeah, that's a very convoluted answer, but I'm sorry.
That's okay. Another question from Allie is, can you speak further to your use of references to family photos? How do you think about selecting photos and how do you layer those into your paintings?
Yes, that's a great question. So a lot of these works, let's talk about this one. A lot of these works are very much based on collaging collaging family documents and photos that I've accumulated and gone through my parents' kind of store of stuff. So in this piece in particular, one thing that I really wanted to focus on was the viewpoint, or kind of like the gaze within the grouping of the people I've collaged together. So especially in my recent series of work, a lot of it is about the gaze within the painting. So the focus of the participants. I like to think of, maybe it's not the best metaphor, but I'll kind of look through these photos, just kind of going through them and picking out ones that I think are significant in terms of the idea, or are significant in terms of how they're composed and what they focus on. So I'll pick out significant ones. And I like to think of the people I pick out kind of as like actors in a sense, like they're kind of performing a role within the piece. And a lot of the time composing it is very much like stage direction almost, which is, it's a very strange kind of self-important way of talking about it. I don't mean it to be like condescending or something like that. It's more meant to be like, I wanna focus the viewer's attention in a specific area, and using family documents is a really great way to, it's a great way for me to think about my family's intrinsic value to me. So who are these people in my life and how do they fit together? One of the best things about them is seeing how they interact together, even if they'd never met or interacted with one another. So that's part of it. Another part would also have to be time. I think time is such an important and interesting concept, and having historical documents kind of lets me dig through time in a lot of really interesting ways. So yeah, another long convoluted answer.
That's great. Oh, that's really interesting. Eleanor said, thank you, Connor. Beautiful work. Congratulations on graduating and wishing you well.
Thank you.
Eleanor. So you're going to be graduating soon. What are your immediate plans when you graduate? Where are you headed next after RISD?
Yeah, that's an important question. I am moving to New York City next Tuesday, actually, and it's going to be a hard move, but I've really grown to love the East Coast. It's totally different than being out in LA. LA is it's very spread out, and the weather's great, but the East Coast just has a richness of art culture that is not there um, as close together in on the West Coast from what I've experienced. So it just feels like the right place to be right now for me.
Margot asks, do you think that you'll pursue gallery representation in New York?
Um, I absolutely will. I'll probably be hanging out on the steps of every gallery, waiting for the gallerist to trip on me or something.
That's a good idea. It's a good strategy. Sandra said, thank you, Connor. Keep doing what you love. It is terrific.
So much.
If anyone else has any other questions, you're very welcome to ask them now while we have Connor here. Like I said, Connor's show is going to be up through Friday, and it'll be up through 4 p.m. if you want to stop by and see it before it comes down. And all the work that's in Connor's show is also listed on our website. Margot also asked, would it have been beneficial for RISD to offer any business courses for you?
Yeah, I don't know about business courses specifically. I think RISD does a very good job. I'll be I'll be a little nice to RISD. So RISD does a very good job of teaching students how to make art. I think one area they really do not put a lot of effort into is career prep. They probably should spend more than one class of one semester teaching that. I don't know if business is the right subject. I'd say things like forming an LLC or like being self-employed, kind of demystifying that process would be really helpful. Yeah, so that's kind of my answer. I think I think art schools in general, they offer great technical and critical feedback, but really lack helping their students kind of get out of the nest, I suppose.
That was very nice, Thursday. Anne said, great work, Connor. We can't wait to hear about how you do someday. Best of luck. And Anne is also a RISD graduate, so that's a fellow
yeah, I know Anne.
Sharing that with you.
Thank you, Anne.
So if nobody else has any questions, no other questions? Going once, going twice? Okay, I will. So Connor, the last question I usually ask people is, what are you working on next? I mean, for you, you have this whole move ahead of you, but are you working on any paintings right now that you're particularly excited about?
I've been in a bit of a moving frenzy recently, so I haven't really been able to paint for the past week and a half or so. So the answer is no.
We'll see some new paintings very soon, I'm sure. Well, I'd like to thank all of you for being with us tonight. It was really fun to learn more about Connor's background and his work. Connor's show at the Art Club is really, really, really good. And I would say, again, and I mean, all of us, all the gallery staff and everybody at the Art Club, we were so happy that we picked Connor because it's a fantastic, fantastic show. We've all enjoyed looking at it over the last couple of weeks, and we all keep going back into the gallery to look at it again and again. And we all look forward really genuinely to seeing what's next for Connor, because we're all sure that great things are waiting for Connor. And thank you to Connor. Great job. Public speaking is very difficult, and you did a very nice job. We all learned a lot about what you're working on and your background and this great body of work you've put together. So thank you too. Good job.
Thank you so much, Mike.
So thanks everyone. We'll make this video available to you if any of you had any problems or anything, couldn't hear something. And thanks again. So thanks, Connor. Have a good night, everybody. Great job, everybody.
Thanks for coming.
Have a good one. Good night.